Hi guys, I'm Laronda Dawson of the Restore Your Health podcast, and we're here at my grandmother's house, and we're going to talk to her about farming and about what she knows about farming, how she grew up on a farm. We had a family farm growing up, and so we're going to go inside her home now and talk to her and do a quick little interview, and we'll be back with you in just a second. So hi guys, we're here at my grandmother's house, and we're doing a tribute this month to Black History, Health, and Wellness, and we're going to talk to my grandmother about our history. Recently, I just found out that we had farming, we had acreage, we had a family farm in our ancestry, down in our ancestry line, and we're going to get a little bit of information from my grandmother about the history of our family and her experience as growing up on a family farm as a young girl, and just how farming was back for the Black farmers back in those era. Okay, so this is Miss Laura Winningham. Grandma, can you just tell everybody, first of all, let me just say thank you for doing the interview, and that we know that you have so much valuable information to share with the world, and so we want to know a little bit about your history growing up on the family farm, how it was as a young girl growing up on the farm, and your experience during farming. And how it was for the Black farmers back in that day. So can you just give us, first of all, a little history about you growing up on the family farm?
Well, I come to live with my grandmama and grandpapa. Well, we call them Big Mama and Big Papa, which is Will Glass and Debbie Glass, which they call her Blanchy Glass. But I came to live with them, my brother and I, when I was 6 years old and he was 9. And I lived with them from 6 until I was 12 years old. So I enjoyed living with my grandmother and my grandfather. And we had 2 uncles and 1 auntie stayed with it. And we just had to do regular farm work just like the older ones did. We helped milk the cow in the morning, helped feed the mule, and we helped plow and pick cotton, corn, and raised chickens. They did hogs and collard greens, turnips, plenty of collards. They had more vegetables farm than they had cotton and corn and stuff. Yes. But they raised the corn and they raised all the greens, the meat, and we had to make the milk and the cheese. And I just loved living on the farm, pick the cotton. Wow. Yeah, and we get up in the morning and we cook. Had to make the fire in the old wooden stove. The men had to cut the wood and stack it up. And in the morning we would get up and make biscuits and the rest of the meal. And we had to go to school. We had to walk to school. We had to walk about 7 or 8 miles to school. Wow. And we enjoyed it because we get up early in the morning and then, get off to the school. We went to a little church high school, which I enjoyed. But we plant the greens, like I said, and Big Papa harvest them, and we took them to the market in Atlanta, the farmer's market, and sold the greens and picked the cottons. We had to pick cotton. Of course, I learned how to pick I could easily pick 200 a day when I got sick between 9 and 12. But we did like normal children did, churn the milk and to make the butter. And we had a well in the backyard, and it was a nice place. Big Mama grew chickens. She would order the chickens from the working man, and that's how we raised the chicken. We had to raise them, from a business thing. We had turkeys, we had goats, we had everything anybody had in the country. But I enjoyed that life. And we went fishing when it rained too hard to work on the farm, and the fields were wet. Big Mama, we did the baits at night and put onions in the bait to make them smell good so the fishes would bite them. And we go fishing. We love to go fishing. I learned to fish, and I learned my grandchildren how to fish. Wow. So, that's amazing. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Wow, that's amazing. And so do you know just about how many acres of land did you have? Family have?
He had 160 acres. He had enough land for all of his children. Wow. And he had Uncle, I was counting, we had Uncle JP, Dawson, we had Willie Hewitt, and we had Thomas and David.
Wow.
So there's 5 boys. Then we had Aunt May, we had Mama, we had Aunt Bird, we had Aunt Josie, and she had twins.
Wow.
So she'd have had 13 children, but
13 children.
but instead she had Aunt Bird, Aunt May, Aunt Josie, and Aunt Bird and Mama.
And all of the 13 children were raised up on the farm.
Right there on the farm in that house. They were born in that house and raised up in there.
And became farmers themselves.
And became farmers themselves. And
Wow.
one of them went to the Navy, and the other one was farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle JP, the oldest one, went to the Navy. Yeah, and the other ones, raised up on the farm there.
Wow.
But I enjoyed it. Like I say, I enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot of things. I learned how to do and raise food myself.
Yes.
I learned how to pick cotton, like I said, but I learned also how to plant the vegetables.
Yes.
And we can all the fruits, even the watermelon rinds. You take the watermelon rinds and you cook them and let them soak with sugar over them for about 2 days, and you cook them till they get, sticky. And then she even can sausage.
Wow.
You could take chitlins and cook the chitlins in a jar and put them in the mason jars and tighten it, and they would keep all the winter. We could have chitlins, you could have sausage. You kill the hogs. Oh, I love killing hogs. You kill the hogs, and you take the meat, and you salt it down and put it in the smokehouse out the back. And that will keep all the winter.
Okay.
And we had Big Mama and have food to share with the peoples on the other farms. And women who had children and didn't have no father, all the men in the country and the boys would get together and they would cut wood on their land, and they'd take it and give it to the lady that had a lot of children, had no husband. They would take the food, and when they kill hogs, and they'd give it to them too.
Right. Can you give us a little bit of history of your father, Mr. Glass?
Big Papa, my grandfather. Well, all I know, he was a good man, hard-working farmer man, and he was a strict man, a godly man, church-going man. All his children was. We had to go to night meeting. We had to go to church on Sunday. We was all in church. We had to say our prayers at night. We had to say your grace before you ate.
Oh, yes.
And you give older people respect.
That's right.
And you just respect your elders and treat people right and just treat everybody the same. That's the way they taught us.
That's right. That's how.
And don't tell no lies, and that your word is your bond.
Yes, that's right.
We were born poor. We didn't have anything but your word. And when you give your word, you do just what you're supposed to do.
That's right.
What you say you're going to do, you do it. And you don't steal, and you don't curse and say foul language. Just you have to be respectful and always care. Don't go around saying I don't care. Don't never use that. Always care and care about your elders and other people.
Yes.
Always share what you have with others too.
Yes. So our grandfather, Glass, he was a farmer, and he taught his sons farming, who also grew up in a farm. I do remember Uncle David having a farm as well.
Yes,
so
yes.
He grew up, he moved out, got his own home and land, and he began farming.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the, out of the 5 boys.
Yeah, he was one of them.
He was one of the ones I remember.
David was the baby boy.
The baby boy. I remember him, his farm.
Yeah, he was
his house.
He was the one in the house when we came to live with him. Him and Uncle Thomas.
Yes.
We stayed with him about 2 years before he left, moved out, and then Uncle Thomas. Yeah, it was 2 went to the army because Uncle Thomas went to the army. He went to the army. We had one in the Navy and one in the army. Yeah, Thomas Glass went to the Navy. But he was well, Big Mama, get back to Big Mama. Big Mama could quilt. She could take any rag, any old coat, tie you had, sock. And she could make quilts. Quilts that they could sell.
Yeah.
And I mean beautiful quilts.
Mm-hmm. And I have a quilt that she made.
That I gave you?
Yes, I still have that quilt.
But she tried to teach me, but I wasn't innocent in and quilting and stuff and cook and all that.
Yes.
I love to go out there and work in the fields and try to. We had an old T-Model car and or tractor, and I would go out there and try to fix on them and plow new. That's what I love to do. I wasn't an indoor type.
Yes.
I was an outdoor type.
Outdoors.
But what
And so my grandfather and your father, Willie Glass, owned the land, which was the glass
farm. Yeah, glass farm.
The glass farm, and he owned that for how long did he own the farm?
Well, all I know, I was 6 when I went there, and he raised my mama, and from mama to Uncle JP and Aunt May them, how many years that they had it all their life.
Yes.
And he had it all his life until Big Papa didn't have a good crop one year, and he needed a tractor. He had an old T-Model Ford, and he wanted a Chevrolet tractor and pay some bills or something. And the Adams wanted to loan him the money, and he borrowed the money, and he couldn't pay it back. They wanted the money all at once, and he couldn't pay it back. And that's how he come to lose the farm. But it's all in the courthouse in Fayetteville. It should be in the courthouse. You can push it up and find it.
Wow.
Yes, but the house supposed to be, well, it was standing about 10 years ago. So it's probably still there.
Yeah. And that's really it's really standard for what happened to black farmers back in that day, who had farms and they wanted to continue farming, but they needed bigger supplies, bigger machinery, and really couldn't afford to actually outright buy it. So they would get the machinery, get a loan and get the machinery, and end up losing their property because they couldn't pay it all.
Well, see, that's how it was. He was told not to do that, not to borrow the money, but they wouldn't let him have nothing at the county store. Because that's how in them days you had to get it from the county store. The shoes we wore, they come from over there on the Adams place at they store. They got a house still, storehouse. Yeah. Yeah. It's also, the church is on there now, which now they done build a post office and stuff down there.
Wow.
But it was a game. They had been taking other people's farms and stuff, but Big Papa was the last one who was holding out because he had more children.
Right. He had more children.
They work on his farm and they get. Oh yeah, it was the same thing where it is now. Well, I'll tell you, incident happened down there, but the guys. But I never look at a white woman. Same thing, and you better say yes, sir. We had to say yes, sir, no, ma'am. And you're never supposed to look them in the eyes and look up at them and whatever. The same thing. You always, know your place, boy and gal. But uncle, which one? One of my uncles was out there working in the field, and Mr. D.H. Adams, he was working right behind the church. They had a big with collard greens and turnips and stuff, and he went to tell him and curse him in front of his wife, Big Papa's one Dawson, and he cursed him, and then went to tell him what to do, and he told him he'd do it himself, and he went over there to kick him, and he grabbed his feet, and he had to leave Fayette County.
Wow.
He came up to the land up here, and they had to hide him up here. So it was the same thing.
So the racial divide was still going on?
Yeah, it was the same thing. You knew where you placed that gal and boy. When we go to the store, you but not walk in front of them, and you but not look them in the face. They want you to still, be in your place. That's what they say. Do you know your place? So that's how we was raised down there. We had to know our places, and we know our places too. And we kept peace too, because you know what your place is. See, But they didn't want Big Papa. Big Papa and a couple more of the blacks had their farm. They didn't want it because they could do it and they could be their own bosses and they could be, had their own. They had their own cotton to carry to the gin. They had their own corn to make the meal and their own wheat to make the flour. They used to make you grow your cane. Big Papa made his own syrup and put it in big cans. Made your own lard. When you kill the hogs, we cooked the fat in the pot. We had to stir it. We couldn't let it stick to that pot because it'll be burnt grease and that ain't no good. That was one of my tools, to stir that fat meat until the grease boiled out, and we take it and put it in big cans. That would be your lard that lasts you a year, sometimes 2 years. You have enough to give away to the poor people, like we said. And you had enough with everything. You had your flour, you had your meal, you had everything. You had your lard, you had your meat, and you canned all the other stuff.
So
yes, you had all your stuff. You had fresh chicken, turkey, and fresh stuff, and milk. You had the fresh milk, and you churn your cheese. You make your butter and put it down in the well. It kept cold.
Wow.
Everything, you had everything that you needed right there.
That's amazing. It's just,
yeah. You see, you churn that butter from the you milk the cows. They put the milk in a churn by the fire, cover it over with a cloth. And you churn that butter, churn that with that long stick with that hell in the bottom of that big churn, that barrel, and it'll turn the butter. Big Mama had butter dishes that you make pretty molds with flowers on them. And she could sell the butter to other people. The working man would come and get some, the working man would get, and that's how we get medicine from the working man. Wow. You get different stuff that we needed. We traded with the working man, come by in the big truck. He would open that big truck, pull it out, and he'd give you just about everything you needed on that truck. Big Mama and them Big Papa, they swap it for chicken, for butter, for milk, fresh milk, and we let it down in the well in a bucket. You have a string tied on it, and you had it in that bucket.
Wow.
And see, when you let it down in there, it ain't going nowhere because you got it tied on the string onto the bucket. And the butter will stay so freezing cold down in that well. Ooh, that's the best water. Yeah, but you had everything, and see, they didn't like that because you had everything. You didn't need it.
Right, you're
so
much self-sufficient.
And see, my Big Papa couldn't pay off the money. It was just got a way to get it. Oh, Big Papa, he had the tractor, the new Chevrolet tractor, looked good. That's how I learned to drive a tractor. Oh yeah, it looked good. And then he bought him a car. See, it looked good. They know how to still working and still doing the same way. See, and he couldn't pay the money, but all of a sudden, they wanted the money back. They didn't want to, like they had to spread it out from year to year. They wanted it all at one time, and he couldn't give it to it one time. So that was it. That's how he lost the farm.